Hey, what's up, everybody? Eddie Gallagher here, retired Navy SEAL, co-founder of the Pipe Hitter Foundation, and co-host of the podcast Shoot Me Straight. I'm proud to announce that we are partnering up with My Patriot Supply. This was a no-brainer to get behind because My Patriot Supply is all about preparedness, and we all know that emergencies come without warning. When they do hit, your supply should be within reach, ready to go at a moment's notice. You can secure these supplies at preparewitheddy.com and start off with a 4-week emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. This 4-week emergency food kit provides up to 2,000 calories per day and can last up to 25 years. And if you act now and go on preparewitheddy.com, you can save up to $50 per kit. That's preparewitheddy.com. Thank you and God bless.
Welcome to Shoot Me Straight, Dave Fields, Eddie Gallagher. We've already been talking for a while, and now we're like, okay, we should probably start the podcast. We're here with Evan Chelini, owns Sand Dunes. A lot of people had told me for a while, hey, you got to meet Evan. You got to meet Evan. And then by chance, through jiu-jitsu, got to have you guys come and got to hang out with you for a month and a half or so. And awesome guy. I don't really know any of your background.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? Where?
Actually, I was born in '86. I was born in Bremerton, Washington, just outside the naval base, up in Washington State, outside Seattle. My dad was a missile tech on nuclear submarines, moved us around. He was from Washington. He was in Virginia at one point in time. He was in Kings Bay, Georgia, which was about an hour north of Jacksonville. I grew up in Jacksonville from 3 until 10. My father retired in '94 as a senior chief of the Navy. Then from there, my mom got into nurse midwifery and was over the University of Missouri in Columbia, then moved to Americus, Georgia, which is like kind of southwest part of Georgia, kind of backwoods, not Atlanta, not Macon, not Columbus, not anything like that, but just a little middle of nowhere town. So moved a lot, like was a lot of it. And
Military brat.
yeah,
Yep, I can relate, yeah.
it was cool. Like it sucked at the time. Like moving when you're young really sucks because you're like, these are all my friends. Like, where am I going? But looking back at it now, like it gives you such a superpower to like connect and relate to people because you get this opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself. At like, I did it at 3, I did it at 10, I did it at 15, I did it at 21, I did it at 23. Like, there's kind of this like molting and shedding of a persona every single time because I was so I'm known as kind of a fitness guy. Like I was known as the CrossFit guy in the area, and now I'm kind of like the strength conditioning guy in the area because I try to be on the front of the ideas that people have about what fitness is. Yeah. Like CrossFit got really popular, and so that was my thing, and that's how I came into fitness. Mm-hmm. But then people started to see CrossFit as this expectation of like, I'm going to train really hard, and then after 3 years, I'm going to hurt myself. And then at that point in time, I was developing a personal reputation with it that was kind of scaring, like it was at odds with what CrossFit was. Because I love CrossFit. I'm a big fan of the original methodology. And when I got into it in 2009, it was sold as this idea as we are a gang of thieves in fitness. We're going to go into all of these different things and we're going to take what works and we're going to bring it in and do our own thing with it. Like we want to be strong like powerlifters and move like weightlifters and, you know, run like marathoners and do all these things and bring it back in. And it kind of, CrossFit itself got into the more competitive side of things, which was not the reason that I got into it. I got into it because my mother taught people, my father was an instructor in the military. They all educated and helped people, and I wanted to kind of follow along in that path. And coaching for me was about education and connection. It was not about, hey man, we're going to make our Fran time, 1 minute and 59 seconds instead of 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Like I work with some NFL guys and some Division I kids now, but it's really more about doing the fundamentals well when I work with them, rather than like, hey, let's get the optimum joint angle and this and that. Because like if you don't have the fundamentals right first, it doesn't matter. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't have the fundamentals right first, then it doesn't really matter how the advanced shit goes if the foundation isn't right.
No, that's spot on. And because like I remember when CrossFit came out, it was big in the SEAL teams when it was like 2008, 2009, around that time when it started seeping its way into the SEAL teams, and then all of a sudden it became like everybody's doing CrossFit in the SEAL teams. And it's like an addicting workout to do because it's, 20 minutes, maybe 30, depending on the workout, but you are, full force, like going at it, and you feel awesome afterwards, right? But like you said, I ended up calling it cross hurt yourself because it wasn't being taught correctly. Like it was, how to do the certain movements. It was just like, hey, we're doing Fran thrusters. That's how you do it. Go. And you can do it for a certain amount of time and years, but eventually it has wear and tear on your body. And that's why I've heard like these CrossFit athletes, they have a shelf life. Like a lot of them, like the ones that compete, there's a shelf life to it. And then it's like, yeah, your body can't maintain that. Is that true? Have you heard that?
There's two methodologies. The ones that are really good that last, you're like Travis Mayers, your Noah Olsons, your Scott Pancheks, like a lot of these names that are coming back year after year after year, like Amy Thordestar. Like a lot of people know that name in the CrossFit field. She has competed and won, had a baby, come back, competed, had another baby, come back, competed again. Like she has obviously a genetic talent, but she was also really intelligent with her training from the standpoint that she kind of had some bumps. I think she blew out a disc in her back, but she's really smart with a longevity approach. And especially as you start getting into like masters competitions and things like that, like you need to remain within the amount of training volume that you can manage. And that is generally gated by your recovery. Because the thing that is really hard, especially for like men that train, is it's not the training part that's hard.
Yeah, it's the recovery.
It's the recovery part that's hard. Like actually setting aside 8 hours in your day to go and get good quality sleep. Actually making sure that you're eating the food that you should be eating and not the food that you want to be eating. Making sure that the supplement protocols are in line. Making sure that you're around good people that are not stressful to you. Because we had a whole... 20 minutes we were out there talking about stress and the gap between the diaphragm and the psoas, and like you just came from this really dope seminar where you had a good time, but it was also a lot of stress at the same time. And you have to offload some of that stuff. You have to be able to get that out of your body, because your body's just going to go, all right, Eddie or Dave is asking me to do this thing, and I want to do this thing, and I want to make sure that I stay on top of it. And then if you never actually shut the system off and try to down-regulate a little bit, then eventually you just start running into weird little shit, like your back locks up. Or
like this morning.
Or your head, like you get stuck like this for a while, and then you have to like turn like Batman. Like it's just...
Yeah, that has been...
You can't relate to it.
He's pretty much describing me in a nutshell, my whole life. Yeah,
for like
it's
30 years.
It's like, and you said it, he's like, you're a master at... stress management, like, which you're not. I don't think I manage it correctly, but I can. Yeah, you're a master at like just. I can take a bunch of stress, and I think like I'm gonna go work out and do all these things to regulate it, but at the same time, it's really not. Eventually, it catches up. And like this morning, I got up and after I was doing my Bible study, and I literally dropped to the floor. My back gave out, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I have no idea. Like I took yesterday off too, didn't do anything.
What were you reading in your Bible study?
Huh?
What were you reading in the Bible study?
I'm on Isaiah, which is, that's that's not a fun one. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of it is all due to stress, and then also not taking care of myself, like some of the exercises we just did out there, like the stretching, which I need to do a lot more of.
I'm gonna ask you a couple like super basic, dumb questions.
I have a policy about dumb questions. The only dumb questions are questions that should have been asked before. So none of these are dumb questions.
So because I'm the opposite. I didn't give a rip about working out until 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start doing 5 pull-ups a day. And I honestly just started doing it because I was like, I think if I work out, it'll help me just kind of grow more mentally.
Can we just pause and say that most people, when they first start working out, couldn't fucking do 5 pull-ups to save their life?
That's true.
I was like, 5 pull-ups a day, but I'm just whatever I did, I was like, I'm gonna do something small and easy, but just be consistent with it and give it a couple months. And after I've done it every day for a couple months, then I'll add something on.
Yeah.
And so. But so I don't know. I know very little around strength and conditioning. Would you say recovery diet or the actual like lifting, like is there, out of those three, which one would you say is like more important, or it's almost like equal?
The one that you're not doing is the one that you need to do the most. And so like depending on where somebody comes from, what environment they come from, if their training is really good and really intense and really intelligent, but then they're not recovering, because like when I competed in weightlifting, that was my problem. I competed really intelligently. I had great programming. I had a great coach. Shout out to Chance Footed out of Five Rings Barbell in Brazelton, Georgia. Solid, one of the most intelligent guys that I've ever worked with. But I didn't manage my recovery because I was also trying to run a gym and I was trying to do all of these other things. My diet was pretty solid. My stress management was pretty good, but my recovery sucked. And so for me to level up as an athlete, I need to address that thing. And so if you look at where you are, is it my nutrition? Is it my training? Is it my recovery? Which one of those three am I doing the least with? And so like for you guys, you have different problems because I don't have to worry about him training hard. I probably have to worry about him training too hard because he's gated by his recovery. If you think about, you've got three different systems that are all operating as a team, the one that is the least capable is going to be your limiter. It's going to be your gate. And so for you, if you tell me I sleep 8 to 9 hours like a baby, you know, I'm on top of my nutrition and all that's taken care of, and then your training is kind of a little dialed back, you might need training. He probably needs recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, mind, body, spirit type thing, right? You want all three of those to function properly as a human being, but you're going to be missing on one of those every once in a while. Like you could focus on two, and then you're going to have to focus on the other one to actually get 100% and propel yourself forward. It's the same thing with working out. Yeah, I mean, and like you just said, my recovery is definitely lacking. But I have a hard time. I have a hard time for the recovery. Like I feel like when I am recovering, my mental state's not the greatest. Like I'm like, I have to go push myself. So I have to like find ways to like, okay, you need to chill out, let your body recover. And then, I'll go do little things just to appease my mental state. Like, okay, push myself a little bit, but I have a hard time balancing that. Yeah.
What should you say out of people that most people you meet, is there like one area that you usually struggle with the most, or is it all different?
I'm really biased just because of like where I spend most of my time in my business. Like most people come to me for intelligent movement design and programming. And so I don't normally talk to people about nutrition until they're ready to talk to me about it. And that's only when they get the exercise side of things. Because it's either I have people that come in that have been injured and they need some like help in recovery, and then we get them into intelligent training, or I have people that have done no training whatsoever, and so just the idea of like doing 5 pull-ups or doing fucking 10 air squats or whatever it is that they need to do to just get themselves moving. That's where a lot of my income comes from, and I have a family to support, so making sure that that part is checked first. Sure. But then once that's on and somebody like displays confidence with the way that they're handling their movement, then we can start talking about other things. So we have a mutual friend that, training is on point, nutrition is on point, recovery is on point, and then once all of those things are kind of balanced, then we can start looking at kind of what individual thing is just a little bit off that might be gating him a little bit. Yeah. And then additionally, speaking to your situation, you are running so hot and so fast that what would normally be just a little issue is becoming a pretty major speed wobble, because speed is the thing, or intensity is the thing that kind of turns little problems into big problems, if that makes sense. And so we have 2 different requirements in a situation that, like, our mutual friend, like, he's a great family man, he's a pastor, like he's doing a lot of things, but nothing is like really dire. Like even when he does get into intensity situations, like he's just now trying to figure out a way to get comfortable with it. Whereas for Eddie, like Eddie is a million miles an hour at all times. And even sitting here is kind of like.
Eddie needs pain to feel good.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate byproduct.
But it's like, dude, like some dogs just want to run, man.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. And it's just recognizing that, like, you asked a really good question, and like, which thing is the thing that people need the most? And that's what it requires to actually sit down and get curious with somebody. Like our other mutual friend, you said before we got on the podcast, is like, he appreciated my approach because I had so many questions. Yeah. How do you feel about this? What does this look like? What does your sleep look like? Da 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 da. We are complex organisms that require simple solutions. It's like most people, you just need to tell them, fucking go home, go to bed. Yeah. Like that's it. That's all you gotta do. Like, you're sleeping 5 hours a night. Like that's the problem. You know the problem. And I think what's really smart is that most people know what their problem is. Yeah. Like if you ask me that question about what's important or what do you need, what do you think you need?
Yeah, for sure. And I know. I like when you say out of those three, you're like the one you need. 100%. Of course you know. Well, one thing I was thinking of you saying is, like, you have this. I recognize. Spot it. You got it. I recognize it. You're fascinated with people too, and people fascinate me.
Yeah.
And like understanding where they came from, how come, like how they think, how they operate, what got them to that place. Like, for me, it's like one of the most. I'm so curious of learning about people and how people operate, also in groups, like understanding, and you said social sciences, 100%. So you have this mixture of your specialty is helping people with the body, and you have almost like a love for the body of understanding how it works and operates, but you also have like how people work and operate. So you get curious with them and build those relationships.
Well, those are good characteristics of a good teacher. Yeah. Like somebody that knows how to pass down knowledge and understanding that each person is different, like the way that you pass that information down. I mean, I run into the same situation when I instruct on the firing range, right? When people come, people obtain information differently. So you have, and that's why, like, I like the fact that you ask questions like about the person, like, oh, what do you do? Like, what do you think about this? And so you're probably analyzing like, okay, this is how this person processes information. And so when I put out the information to them, I'm going to put out in such a way that they'll be able to obtain it a lot easier. Because I have people come to the range and, there's some people that like direct, like, hey, dude, you're not doing this right. Do it this way, and they can obtain. But then there's other people where you sort of have to walk them through it and coach them along. And also, people want positive feedback. Like, hey, you're doing this good, and sort of build their confidence up a little bit. Even though they might be screwing some other things up, you build their confidence up in that manner. And then you can go back to, okay, now let's fix these things right here. And to me, I've seen people can obtain knowledge a lot better that way. But it's each person's different, right? But that is, I mean, my parents, my mom was a teacher, my dad was also a military instructor, so like I take a lot from them in the way that I was raised, and it's all about getting to know the person that you're teaching or instructing or passing down knowledge to.
Yeah, some of that from your background of moving around and going to a new high school or a new school and different culture, and figuring out, fitting in, getting to know people, seeing how different people work.
I think something that we're all going to resonate on is that we're fascinated with the human condition and the story. Mm-hmm. And so from that, you can kind of garner authenticity about an individual, because the more background information you have on the person, the more you can kind of understand what fuels their decision making. Mm-hmm. And with moving around a lot, because like you were a military brat as well.
Yeah.
And you've moved a fair bit. That there's a period of reinvention, but then there's also a different rule set every different environment you end up in. That like the environment that is high school is totally inapplicable to what happens post high school. You get into college or you get into military, there's a different culture, there's a different background. But then additionally, you can talk to somebody about their background, you can talk to somebody about the way they learn. Are they a what person? Are they a how person? Are they a why person? And then the way you communicate with them based upon what their background and their authenticity is informs how they learn, and then from how they learn as a teacher, you can direct them to an outcome that they feel they want that is in alignment with what your skill set is as an instructor. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Yeah.
Yeah, like your biggest win probably is seeing that person that comes in. I'm guessing. You see the person comes in that could only do a few pull-ups or whatever, and you're able to connect with them, but like program them through up to their goals.
My the biggest wins for me aren't really because like I've had Pierce Sperlin was a kid that was down here for a while. He was a tight end. He went to Georgia. Caden Smith is playing for the UFL. He played for the Giants. Like they're both great guys. Like they're both great athletes. They're phenomenal. They work fucking hard. They embody everything that they need to. But like when you're working with a Ferrari like that, like they're kind of already set. Like they're kind of already in their own direction. And like my job is to make sure that like things are tuned up and things are in alignment. But like they're already on a good path. I just need to be there to kind of pull the bumps out. The things that really get me going, I have a gentleman that had a double hip replacement. And he just sent me a text message like 2 days ago about how he climbed a fucking mountain out in Arizona. Like that's
awesome.
Dope to me.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because I get people that tell me that like, oh, like, you know, I'm so grateful for you. Like you've helped me so much and all these things. And the best way I can describe it is almost like both of us holding a plate. It's like if I help you guys with anything, you know, it's not something that I did. I gave you some guidance and then you got actionable about it. And so it's a team effort. It's not like, I get really weirded out when people are like, oh, you're so great, you're awesome, da da da. Because like you're never as good as people say. You're never as bad as people say either, but you're kind of somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so it's such a team effort. Like anything that we accomplish together, like coming together for a podcast or, you know, accomplishing some kind of physical task or even just establishing a good physical training regimen for someone who fucking hates exercise. Yeah. Like that's a win. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I find a little bit more
rewarding.
Yeah.
It's helping others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever get tired of fitness? Have you ever hit some spots? Because you've been doing it for so long now. It's like where you're like, man.
The times where I've been the most tired with fitness are the times where it's felt like I haven't been growing. Like that's been the hardest time. That with weightlifting, so like when I say weightlifting, I mean like snatch and clean and jerk, like competing at the USAW, American Open, stuff like that. When it's felt like it's just been work and no education, that's been the hardest. But there's value in that from the standpoint of sometimes you just have to chew on something for a while to really like fully take it in and be able to guide people in that right direction.
Yeah.
But any time where it feels like I'm just doing a thing because I'm supposed to be doing a thing without actually garnishing any extra value out of it, those have been the times where it's been the hardest for fitness for me.
Yeah.
Because like I grew up overweight. Neither one of my parents are really into gym culture or fitness. I've seen it change a lot. Like when I got into it, it was, you know, Les Mills was just now coming around with Gold's Gym and, you know, the golden age of bodybuilding. Like it was Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler were around. And so a lot of it was still like get big, like lightweight baby, like all of that stuff. And then it transitioned into CrossFit, which was all about winning. Like everything with CrossFit was about what was your score, what was your time, what was your points, put it on the whiteboard. How good are you compared to everybody else? And then you kind of pick that person that it's like, and I think that's why it went so well with operators.
Yeah.
Because y'all could fucking win.
Yeah, it's competition.
Yep.
And that's what we thrive off of. Yeah.
And we have to. Because as a country, especially when it comes to combat, like we are a country established in warfare. And for us to go anywhere, like we have to be able to win. Like the goal is not, we're going to go into that country. No, we're going to go into that country and fucking win. Or we're going to accomplish the task.
Yes, at least that's what it's supposed to happen.
That's what you guys are trained for,
That's
right?
what we're trained for, yeah.
I didn't know CrossFit got huge in the SEALs.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's Dave Castro. He was a SEAL. He really, like, blew up CrossFit. I mean, do you know who he is? Yeah. I mean.
Head of programming for the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
He got fired for, I think, 6 months before the entire community came up. We're like, we want him back. Bring him back. Yeah, he owns an olive oil company now, I think.
Yep. Yeah, at least that's what I heard him on a podcast talking about it. Yeah, he was going in that direction. And then, yeah, he really, like, got involved in that and then brought it to the SEAL teams. And it literally started off, like, really small. Like, the instructors were, like, getting involved in it. And then it became part of the workout regimen for students going through, not during BUDS, but more SQT, like SEAL qualification training, they were like implementing a bunch of CrossFit workouts and teaching certain movements. So yeah, I mean, but then I think it's still there a little bit, but now it's more, it sounds like to what you're doing. Like they hired a bunch of people just to focus on functional movements, mobility, really creating longevity for the operator so they can keep going in that job. Because what they found out is like, yeah, great, you have awesome Fran time and you can lift this much weight, but that it really hasn't. I mean, it has some benefit to actually operating, but we're going out there wearing I don't know how much pounds of kit, and just beating the shit out of our bodies daily, and then coming back and expecting, now go do this CrossFit workout, and then guys were getting hurt. So they switched, smartly enough to like, okay, how can we still maintain some of this, strength and conditioning that CrossFit has to offer, but also do the longevity piece of how can we keep these guys going.
Yeah.
So, they got smarter about it over time, but it definitely, there were some bumps and bruises along the way. Like, and then it was funny to watch because as I got older in the teams and some of these younger guys were coming up and they were deep into CrossFit. And then like the diet, like, oh, I'm only eating paleo and this and that. But you'd see them, we'd be out in 120 degree, weather in the desert and for 4 weeks running and gunning with a kit on, they'd fall out. It's like they couldn't keep up. And these guys are like jacked, ripped, like looking like goddesses, and they're shitting the bed on us. It's because it's like, dude, that has nothing to do with our actual job. Like, you have to fuel yourself properly to do this job, and it's not about, cutting down so your physique looks like this and whatever. That's naturally going to happen, but it just, I think they had to do a lot of tailoring back on a lot of that and putting out good information to the guys like, hey, dude, you can't live like this and do this job. Like, there's a way to do both. And they ended up hiring some really good people to come in and sort of instruct the newer guys coming up. I think they almost went too much into it, but these new guys now are getting taught classes on how to cook properly, how to like the nutrition, and how to properly take care of yourself and work out, which we never. When I came up, it was just like beat the shit out of yourself, take it, suck it up, keep going.
One of you will get through this.
Yes. Yeah.
That was actually part of the transition that got me out of CrossFit was, are you familiar with like John Wellborn and Power Athlete and any of them?
I've heard the names. I'm not like super familiar with it, but
so CrossFit had specialty courses, and some of the specialty courses were like movement mobility with Kelly Starrett, and then there was
supple like a leopard.
Yeah, supple leopard.
Yes, he actually came out. I'm sending me to cut you off.
Please.
He came out. So when I tried out for Dev Group, he was there with the cadre and like was running us through a lot of the mobility and stretching and everything like that. So I got to spend at least 2 weeks with him.
Super amazing speaker.
Yeah.
Like from the standpoint that he can get up in front of a room and like his just the way that he presents. Like, he's entertaining, he's funny, he's kind of goofy. You can tell he's super fucking intelligent with everything that he's touching on. And so just having those specialty courses around, we're like, all right, this is how I'm getting into fitness. And then what am I interested in? Movement mobility, sport performance, this and that. The guy that was running the sport performance was a guy by the name of John Wellborn. And John Wellborn was out of Costa Mesa for a while. He's down in Austin now. But he ran CrossFit football. And they were like, oh, this is like the football certification seminar. And what it actually was just intelligent strength conditioning. We're going to build. So do you remember with CrossFit how it used to be just a workout and then it becomes strength in a workout?
Yes.
That was John's doing. John brought that in, and everyone's like, well, everybody that's doing CrossFit football is getting stronger and getting better at the workouts. Well, why are we just going to do the CrossFit methodology, which is like this 15-minute workout or sometimes like an hour-long workout with the hero rods?
Yeah.
When we could be doing this CrossFit football program, which gets everybody stronger, and then once they got stronger, their workouts automatically got better. So it's not official, but the Power Athlete approach or the CrossFit football approach was what kind of bled into CrossFit to get it into strength and then conditioning piece. And then John is best friends with Kelly Starrett and best friends with Rob Wolf, the guy that brought the paleo diet and everything along through CrossFit. And so those guys all kind of got, I don't think Kelly did, but John and Rob both got excommunicated by CrossFit HQ. And so they kind of broke off and started their own thing. And I followed John into power athlete and understanding like what does traditional strength conditioning look like? What are the influences from like Verkhoshansky and a couple of these like old Russian style systems? And then additionally, you're starting to see these other guys come up in the current day and age of like Olympic weightlifting and sport performance. Like, are you talking about Mike Robertson? There's so many coaches out there that are doing great stuff. Even the Darius that I've been doing some research on that you had on the podcast. Phil Daru.
Oh yeah, that's a good buddy of mine.
Fucking fascinating, some of the stuff he's doing.
Oh, that guy is unbelievable. Like he came out here and we did a couple things together. I took him to the range, taught him some shooting, and then we went back to my garage gym and he ran me through probably 2 hours of just movements, like no weights, a lot of isometric stretching, and like just even in that 2 hours the next day, I felt phenomenal. I was like, but the thing is, like those movements are so like you really have to have them down or have somebody there sort of coaching you through like now put pressure here and then put pressure here, because I couldn't remember all that when I was trying to do it by myself. But yeah, that guy. Really shout out to Phil Daru. Like, yeah, he's extremely intelligent in the way he goes about.
Really cool dude.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Reminds me of you, actually.
Well, it's what's really cool is that like both like his system, and when I look at it, it's so cool that both of y'all took coffee drinks at the same time.
Yeah.
You've been hanging out for a while.
We're syncing up.
Like, quick, he's about to start talking. Get coffee. So he's got a system behind him that's called anatomy trains. Did he talk about Tom Myers or fascial systems or anything with you?
Fascial systems, yeah.
Okay, so the guy that brought you guys have heard the term fascia?
Yep.
I know you have you?
Yeah, but I don't know what it is.
So fascia is essentially a network of basically connective tissue that runs throughout the entire body. That when they first started with orthopedics, they're talking about like muscle, origin insertion, well, whatever. The physical therapy side or the orthopedic side basically broke everything down to like, this is a muscle, this is where it starts, this is where it ends, and this is what it does. Whereas the fascial system is more about groups of muscles or teams of muscles that all work together to perform a certain function. And that got popularized by a massage therapist named Ida Rolf, who started Rolfing, and then Tom Myers, who wrote the book Anatomy Trains. You're now starting to see a lot of fitness guys or fitness people come into the industry and start to take some of this stuff. Phil's using it. I'm using it. There's a couple other really smart trainers out there. I can't remember his name and his wife. I met him at a dissection out in Colorado. But they are starting to use this kind of fascial understanding of how are we getting people to move intelligently in the way that their body wants to move. So instead of it saying like, hey, we're going to do bicep curls and deadlifts, like it's thinking more along the lines that if I hold my arm out and I pull inward, I can fire my pec, and then I can fire my lat to connect to it, and then additionally I'm going to connect my forearm to it as well. When we were working on your knee last time, that was the way that I was kind of looking at you. And I haven't worked with Phil, but I'm assuming that he does a lot of the same things, understanding that like there's a whole chain of muscles that work together that have these interconnective tissues that run from, say, like you've got one that runs from the bottom of the foot all the way up to the top of the head. And so it's this big connection of things that actually moves the body. And the same way that when you were having a back issue earlier today, the second you moved your neck, your back hurt.
Yep.
And what it was is that the back of his body is having to work so much harder because there's systems on the front of his body that are tight. You come from jiu-jitsu and everything's like tight, like you're trying to keep your elbows to your knees, because the second that the elbow separates from the knees, you're in trouble. You've just opened up your guard or you've lost a position. And so everything on the front of the body is tight from coming from the seminar and then being stuck in a plane and all of that. And so the second that anything on the back of the body has to work, it has to work double time, because all of the tissue on the front of the body is basically stuck short, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
And something I got from Phil, he's got I think he literally calls it a Daru row, but it's a pulling rotation with like a hip turn at the same time.
Yep.
So fucking smart.
Yeah.
So smart from the standpoint of the second you try to teach a football player how to do like an arm drag. So like I've got some linebackers that are high schoolers that you literally just watch these kids like grab an elbow and rip past another kid. And the same thing for like jiu-jitsu. Like you're going from knee fighting, but the second you can plant your foot and grab that elbow and really give a good pull, you give that rotation, you're immediately around the body.
Yep.
And it's so fucking smart. And I'm personally jealous that I didn't think of it sooner. But like credit where credit's due. So
Yeah, I mean he'll come down here. We're going to do some more stuff, and I'd love to like get you guys together as well when he comes down.
that'd be awesome.
For sure. Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy, man. You guys will get along.
He does jiu-jitsu too, right?
Yeah.
Is he a brown belt or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like you get at, like you just get back into jiu-jitsu and then you start looking around and there's just like there's hidden brown belts everywhere. There's brown like the guy that was in here earlier is a purple belt. It's like just killers
Yep.
everywhere in our midst.
It's good to see though.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
how it should be.
they're the least expected. Mm-hmm. Like nicest. That's your clue. If they're like super respectful, nice, and like
Giant ears.
dude, awesome.
So you when did you end up moving here?
I moved here in 2011. Mm-hmm. Started training people out of the back of my car. I was driving and like teaching them how, like the 9. Are you a level 1 CrossFit?
I'm not certified in anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with like the 9 fundamental movements? Okay. I was teaching them the 9 we were doing med ball cleans in their fucking driveway and shit. Started that, got a couple more clients, took over a garage unit, and just got more people, got a little bit bigger, got more people, got a little bit bigger. We've got a good 4,000 square foot facility now that's got some physical therapists, some massage therapists, and just growing, like the never-ending pursuit of legitimacy and adapting to the needs of the people that are around us. Most of our clientele right now are professionals. They don't have a lot of time. They want to be able to outsource their fitness to people.
Yeah.
And that's normally where I slot in. But it's just been a good growth and meeting good people and meeting them where they are and what they need and helping.
Where do you see yourself going? Like, what do you have entrepreneurial ambitions of taking it in multiple locations or?
Meeting people has been the greatest joy of my life. And then also like slotting into, I kind of like dive bombing people with help from the standpoint that if I can like show up in an area and just like give a seminar and like have like 5 people in front of me and like fix 5 different problems. Lululemon actually just had me come out and teach a spot over at a local, and I had, a couple people out in front of me and they all had different orthopedic things. And we went through some really intelligent isometrics with, I had one lady with a hip problem that it was about the rotation of the hip, like whether if this is the leg and the hip, internal and external rotation. And so just by cultivating a little bit more internal rotation, I was able to get a lady out of some hip pain. And then I had another lady that had a shoulder issue that we did something similar with the shoulder. And so showing up to something like that and really being able to just like address that person's problem and give them the tool that they need to. It's kind of like what we were working on earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, like we stretched before the podcast and we're going to stretch after the podcast. I don't think you know that yet.
No.
But it's like if I can show up and just arm people with the knowledge to make them aware, it's like, yes, everything that you feel is totally valid. And then this is how you solve that problem. And then just give them the tools that they need and then like right off to the next person. Like that sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah. Like you get to experience a lot of someone going, man, my lower back hurts. And then it ends up being something in like the upper back or like somewhere else that is bogging it. Like you fix something up here and it's like, holy smokes. Like I hadn't even thought about that it was over here or it was because of this. Is that a common reaction that you get a lot?
My favorite word is actually. Because like you'll go and do something and like you have them stretch quads or hip flexors or you get their lats loose or something like that. And you're like, how do your back feel? And they're like, actually it feels pretty good. So like that's been my favorite phrase to hear because it's almost like this light bulb kind of, they feel better. They don't really understand why. It kind of opens them up to an idea that there's a concept there that they're not really thinking about. And expanding people's minds to ideas about how they're moving and how their body's actually communicating with them is really powerful for me and what I really enjoy doing the most.
You're like a fitness Benny Hinn. Show
no idea who that is.
Except he actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he
Who
was
is
like
that?
was he that,
He's the
that
dude
pastor?
who, like, heals people and knocks them
Oh
down.
God, no! Don't.
Evan
I think
comes
that was a
in.
bad analogy, dude. What is your thoughts on chiropractors?
I believe that chiropractors are a lot like Chinese food, and I think that all professionals are a lot like Chinese food. That like there's good and there's bad, and just because you had a bad experience at one, which like I've had a bad experience at a chiropractor, doesn't mean that I like shout out to like locally Adam Zimmerman, Braxton Turnage up in Freeport. Like there are a lot of good chiropractors that are in the area. There's a lot of bad ones too. It's the same thing of like we talk about range instructors.
Yeah.
We can both talk about a range instructor that has a lot of popularity that probably doesn't know how to shoot his way out of a paper bag, and we probably know who that person is. But at the same time, like the best thing that you can do is just continue to be the shining example of what a good range instructor is, what good instruction on that level is. You're obviously someone that gives a shit a lot about how to train somebody and how to meet them where they're at. And instead of having this kind of just one size fits all approach to training, like you're actually trying to connect with people and learn with them, which is, it's great, but it also doesn't scale in business the way that you'd necessarily want it to until you have the right people in place. So,
Okay, so yeah, because I mean I go every once in a while, like and I'm always wondering, I'm like, dude, is this hurting me more if I'm getting my adjusted, or should I just stretch and do other movements? I mean, I know should do both, but yeah, I'm always curious to get like professionals' opinion on.
if not moving and it needs to be moving, then you need someone else to get it moving.
Okay.
So like whether you're talking about acupuncture, chiropractic, dry needling, massage, foam rolling, any of that stuff. If you have something that should be articulating and is not articulating, then you need some kind of outside force to basically correct it. And that's my understanding. I'm working with Caitlin Hogan out of California in Annex Strength and Performance. She was a American national record holder, and now she's an FRC. Do you know FRC?
No, it was
Functional range conditioning. It was the guy that started FRC was the guy that dealt with all of the physical fitness concerns of astronauts. And so basically how could they utilize or create a training methodology for astronauts up in space? And what she's taught me, because she came from weightlifting as well and then has gotten into FRC, she has taught me that there are certain things that we have lost because we haven't moved a certain way. And the second that we stop moving a certain way, the body will no longer allocate resources to maintain that ability or that tissue, or you're essentially telling your body that it's living in an environment that it no longer has to perform that. So like if you think about a NASCAR, like NASCAR racing, they only have to make left-hand turns, like in their sport. And so they get really, really good at making left-hand turns. And the second that they're asked to make right-hand turns, well, their system might not be as optimum for making a right-hand turn because they're tooled to left. I don't know if this is actually how NASCAR works or not, but this is kind of my analogy.
They tool the car and the driver to all left.
All left.
Yeah.
And so your body's very intelligent, is that it's going to allocate resources to the systems that it needs. And so if we start talking about, so like my problem coming from amateur MMA and kickboxing is that I got really good at rotating my hips from right to left because I threw right round kicks all the time. I threw right straights and right round kicks. Like those were my two moves. And so now my spine does a much better job at rotating this way than it does rotating this way.
Yeah.
And if I don't go back and spend time correcting that rotation and getting myself as comfortable rotating the opposite direction, then my body's just going to go, well, we're in an environment where I don't need that anymore, so let's get that off the budget and go a different direction. And so with chiropractic, and especially somebody that runs as hot as you do, you're like, I'm going to do the things I want to do, and then I'm going to try and develop a recovery methodology on the back end to basically try and prop up all of the work that I'm going to do. And if you have somebody like a chiropractor, which let's just agree that a soft tissue therapist is going to be a lot of different things. It can be a massage therapist, it can be a chiropractor, it can be an acupuncturist, it can be, you know, somebody that teaches you how to foam roll or teaches you how to use lacrosse balls. I would count Kelly Starrett, who had a lot of bands and a lot of balls and all these things, as somebody that is trying to teach you about how to self-manage your soft tissue needs. You use bands to pull yourself into a new position. You use balls to basically get certain things moving that wouldn't normally be moving. So you're using some kind of outside force to push you into the direction that you need to get into. And then your body provides guidance and feedback based upon where your tension is and what positions and pressures feel good and what positions and pressures feel bad, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, completely.
And so like you have, like if we have a shoulder issue, if we have something going on that like we don't really like getting into external rotation, well, it's why do we not like getting there? Well, there might be a trauma there might be some restriction in the front of my shoulder, there might be some deficiency in the strength on the back of my shoulder, there might be some issue with my rib cage being out of position. Like it could be any of those things, and I am not the expert. Like y'all are the expert because you guys are living in the body. And so coming from that curiosity that we were talking about earlier, it was, you know, how does this make you feel? When I was working with you on your back earlier today, it's like, what does this position feel like? Well, this kind of feels like a stretch and a little bit of a pain. Well, let's back out of the pain, and I want you to double down on the stretch. Now, try this little bit of hip rotation. Try activating your left lat. Try changing this, try changing that. And so I'm slowly introducing stimulus, and then he's understanding, all right, if I do this, it feels like this. If I do this, it doesn't feel that good. Okay, I want to do more of A, less of B. And then as time goes on and things start to stretch and lengthen, we then get more real estate to kind of work with. And so then we start integrating, you know, if A worked and B didn't, then we double down on A, and then we come back to B later. Because we know that he needs to be able to do B, but if he can't do B right away, that's fine. We're going to do what we can do, and then as it starts to open and create more space, then we can start to integrate some other things. So we were working in a couch stretch earlier, which is a really common, you know, quad, like really aggressive hip flexor quad stretch. And the way that he was getting his heel to his butt and his foot back behind him is he was shifting really hard into that left hip. And so basically he was here and shifted in order to get that leg behind him. And so in the long run, I want to be able to see him shift back into that right hip and create more length through the cavity down here, the abdominal cavity, and then basically try to be able to open that rib up without popping the rib up totally. So create length from the bottom of the ribs, which is where the psoas connects, all the way into the hip, without exaggerating through the lumbar, if that makes sense. Because the second that you pressed your head back and opened up your throat was when your back started to hurt. And so it just basically means that there's a piece of tissue that's really tight. But like, I can't look at him and just be like, oh, that's automatically it. Yeah. Like it requires conversation. It requires connection. Yeah. It requires all of that. I mean, we're working together. We're working together to solve a problem.
It's testing, tooling.
No, I mean, yeah, it's fascinating, man. Like working with you, and then I mean, you or like people like Phil, because you guys are so knowledgeable, but you guys take the time, we just went through. Like you're sitting there asking me like 4 or 5 different questions, and then adjusting me to, like you said, eventually open up and get rid of that problem. Where I think some people are just like, yeah, just do these 5 stretches, and you're like, well, okay, those 3 of those hurt, you know, but that's what a lot of people do is they're like, just do these 5 or 10 or whatever they assign you. Yeah. And it's not as easy as that sometimes, you know. It's not going to relieve you of your pain, or sometimes it makes it worse. Unless you have somebody sitting there like we just did, like talking me through it, like even the little minutia movements, like, all right, now flex your right glute, you know. That right there was like, oh, okay, now I feel relief, you know. So yeah, you are super knowledgeable, man. And I think definitely this area is blessed to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Sand Dunes website,
sanddunesSC.com.
Okay.
And it's pretty much Sand Dunes SC all across, like Instagram, Facebook, all those.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. Thank you, guys.
No, man, it's an honor to have you on. Yeah, and hopefully the locals that are listening, definitely go check out Sand Dunes Strength and Conditioning if you're looking to better yourself, take care of yourself, or get stronger. Yeah.
What about if tourists come in? when they're coming in the summer? Do you get some tourists coming in with specific problems or specific needs?
A lot of people know that I'm down here because So we talked about like CrossFit that's got like a lifespan of like 3 years, right?
Yep.
CrossFit gyms have about the same. That generally for a gym to be in business for, we're going on. We just passed 13 years last month.
Come on.
The fact that we've been in business for so long, like until you actually get hands-on, and it's harder now because like I've got a kid, and so I'm not spending as much time. It used to be like 5:30 to 6:30 Monday through Friday, like I was at the gym, and now I'm home more. I have a son.
Yeah.
And so it's balancing a lot more. And so if I have people coming in from out of town, I'm fortunate that I get a lot of different exposure and I get to talk to people, but I'm not up there as much. If you reach out through the website and you want to schedule something one-on-one personal, like I can set that up.
Yeah.
But honestly, we get a lot of drop-ins just occasionally.
Yeah. What about someone reaching out and going, hey, we're here on 38th through my, something's hurting or I'm struggling with something. Do you ever go and make house visits?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I had I'm trying to think the last time I did it. I have a lot of people that just come to me just because getting out of an environment and making sure that there's the right kind of equipment. Like the couple of times that I've come in here to help out, like we've kind of made do with what we had. Yeah. But at the same time, like there are certain tools and things that you want. And it's pretty basic stuff like bands, balls, stuff like that. Pads for your knee on doing certain stretches. I'm willing to try. Like, I'm willing to try and help anybody, but I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, I'll totally solve your problem because, like, I don't know what's coming down the pipe at me.
Yeah, and it's better to do it in your own environment where you have all the tools where you can sit there and be like, okay, we can use this or bands or whatever else. If you went to somebody's house, you're only working with a certain amount.
And I guess the big thing is, man, is like I don't want to lie to anybody about it. Like from the standpoint that I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, I know all of your problems and I can solve everything and like I can do all this for you. And it's more along the lines of like, tell me what you got going on. Like I actually just had a phone call with a lady before I came here, and she got worked on by a physical therapist that I love, and that helped her. And then she went to a physical therapist and it made it worse. And she's a tennis player, and she's got all of these other things going on, and she's so frustrated. You can hear it and you can just hear it in her language. She's like, I've spent $100 everywhere, and I can't figure this out, and sometimes it's making it worse, and this and that. And I was like, okay, calm down. Tell me what you've done. Tell me where it's going. Tell me what it feels like. And so she walks me through all of these things, and I was like, I feel confident that I can handle this problem. If I can't help you feel better, you won't pay, like at all. And so, like, I need to have some context and understanding about what we're dealing with. And, like, it can't always be that I'm going to walk in on a podcast studio and, like, you know I was coming. But at the same time, like, there are still a lot of things that I don't understand. And so, like, our mutual friend that I was talking about, like, he has had a hip issue or a back issue that we have worked around and made a lot of really great progress. But there's still this just one little nagging thing that every time I look at it, it just... like I can't quite figure it out. And I'm sure that like if, somebody out there like Phil or somebody is going to come down and be like, oh, it's this thing. There was a really smart guy, Jim Laird, and he was working down here for a while, and he's a really well-known strength coach. But he told me a story about how he had a female athlete that had back pain constantly, and he couldn't figure it out. And so what he did is he took his athlete to another coach that he really respected, is Mike Robertson. And Mike Robertson took a popsicle stick and put it in her mouth and had her bite down on it. Her back pain went away.
What the?
And it's like there's some wild shit out there that we just don't understand. And so now the more we find out about the human body and the way everything lines up, and there's a group out there that talks about how the rotation of the planet changes the way we shift our weight based upon whether you're in the northern or the southern hemisphere. And then there's another group out there that says the organ weight on the right side of your body is heavier than the left side because your liver's this big and your heart's this big. And so you're automatically shifting to that side. And it's like, we don't know fuck all about the human body, and we're going to look back in 100 years, if we're still around and AI hasn't run us all over again, we're going to look back in 100 years and be like, look at all that dumb shit we were doing back in like the 2000s.
I think, but that's how we evolve though too.
100%.
So we have to go through that. Yeah.
Well, this is awesome. Awesome conversation, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the time, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, brother.
All right. Out.
Out.